Good morning.
Hey.
Everyone all at once. How are you doing? I was hoping that would take longer. Welcome both in the sanctuary and online to the Sunday in-gathering service of the Unitarian Universalist Church of St. Petersburg. Now, tomorrow we celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day, and right now we are on the unceded ancestral lands of the Tocobaga and Seminole Native people. My name is Ben Atherton-Zeman. I am the minister here. There's Aaron Cassette on the piano, John Arterton, James Mack, along with the UU St. Pete Choir is here for today's music. Very exciting. And today, Aaron Powers and others in the RE team are leading our Time for All Ages, and today's worship associate is the amazing Todd Wellman. Good morning, Todd.
Hey, everybody. How's it going? Thank you. Look at that, joys and sorrows being taken now. If you want a church where we pay attention to mental health, where we do things like share that this Tuesday, October 10th, is the 30th celebration of World Mental Health Day, I have good news for you. You may have found your church home.
All right, thanks, Todd. Today is also New Member Sunday, and we'll get to welcome 3, possibly 4 new members. We have 2 announcements. One is from us, and one is from our board members, so board members can start making your way up for your announcement. But our first announcement is not involve the board.
So get into your nice, comfortable, I'm definitely listening position. Our first announcement today is about the fire drill, which we will conduct immediately at the end of service. In your order of service, we hope you're having fun with your fire drill quiz. We have fire marshals in orange vests who will assist your exit to safe zones. Fire marshals, please stand or wave as you're able so people see. Okay, those are your fire drill marshals. Thank you all so much for doing that. The alarm and lights will continue throughout the drill until an all clear is announced by the fire marshals Doug Elliott and Deb Carlson. You have 4 parts today. As soon as you hear the alarm, number 1, please exit the sanctuary, either through the main entrance or the ramp. Marshals will assist you. If you will be in religious education, Conway, the kitchen, the office, please exit through the patio or office and go to the sidewalk on Arlington Avenue. Number 2, please remain in the 2 safe zones. There are Mirror Lake Drive and Arlington Avenue until your fire marshal calls all clear. At that point, number 3, come back inside because we have lots of coffee to drink. Number 4, keep track of the persons next to you and make sure they get out of and into the building safely. Now, for our second announcement, please welcome Morgan and Beth.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The Minister Search Committee and the Board of Trustees, that's both of us, jointly announced the decision to call Reverend Ben as the settled minister. We remain committed to the outreach and education advocated for by the MSC, but we have heard unequivocally that the congregation wants to move forward with a vote. That vote will take place on Sunday, November 19th. More on the logistics of the secret balloting process to come. Our first workshop, entitled More Than Sunday Morning, Understanding Shared Ministry, will take place next Sunday, October 15th. Thank you.
Thank you, Morgan. Thank you, Beth. Thanks, Todd. Thank you, board. Thank you, Minister Search Team. As Unitarian Universalists, we are a people of diverse faiths, but we share a common belief, the belief that every person is worthy of love, that what we do in this world matters, and that we are connected to one another and to the earth. So whoever you are and wherever you are on your journey, you are welcome here.
Last week was Sukkot, the week-long Jewish holiday that celebrates the fall harvest. We give a special welcome to any Jewish UUs and, of course, to any newcomers. If you are new to UU St. Pete, or even relatively new, can you give a wave? Usually, at this point, we'd be bringing a microphone out to you to introduce yourself if you'd like, but we have a lot to cover today, so we'll be doing that next week again.
Thanks so much for silencing your cell phones. Yes, that is the cue to silence them if you have not. Regarding masks, we don't mandate them, but several in our community and in the community at large have reported COVID exposure. So we do encourage anyone who wishes to wear one, and they're available at either entrance. Let's take a moment to greet our neighbors. I see some neighbors I haven't seen in a while. Make sure you get consent before you hug or shake hands or anything like that. Oh, there she is. She's right there.
As Pete Alem, everyone, as Pete Alem lights our chalice, please give voice to our shared connections by saying our covenant together. The words can be found in your program and online in the text chat. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Now please rise as you're willing and able for our first hymn, Love Will Guide Us. It's number 131 in our beautiful gray hymnal. One of my favorite hymns.
Good morning.
Morning, John.
You may notice down at the bottom of the page on 131 in the right-hand corner, it says Olympia, LM. So the composer, who is Betty Weidler, named this tune Olympia after
Olympia Brown.
Yes, Olympia Brown. Yes, who we're going to find out more about today. Also, if you're interested, LM means long meter. That's the number of syllables per line. Anyway, I digress. Hit it. Here we go. Love will guide us Jesus tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide us. Jesus has tried us. Hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the dark night.
You may be seated, and I invite our religious education team, along with any children or children at heart, to come forward to share our time for all ages.
Good morning.
Morning.
All right. So my name is Erin Powers, and I am y'all's new-ish teen and youth teacher. So there are some prophetic women in UU history that we often do not hear about. For instance, we have Anna Garland Spencer, who was a free religionist associated with the Unitarians, and she lived from 1851 to 1931. She was the first woman to give the Berry Street Lecture in 1929. And the Berry Street Lecture is the oldest lecture series on the North American continent dedicated to furthering liberal religion. She was married to a Unitarian minister and herself was a minister, though non-affiliated.
Julia Ward was an American author and poet known for writing the Battle Hymn of the Republic and the original 1870 pacifist Mother's Day Proclamation. She was also an advocate for the abolitionism and social activist, particularly for women's suffrage. Though raised an Episcopalian, Julia became a Unitarian by 1841.
Jane Addams lived between 1860 and 1935. She was born a Quaker, but attended Unitarian services in Chicago. She was the founder of Full House, one of the first settlement houses providing services for working class women and men. She was a founding member of the ACLU, and she was also the first U.S. woman to win the Nobel Peace Prize in 1931 for her international peacemaking efforts.
And just like Olympia Brown, each of these women played a part in the roots of Unitarian and Universalist faith. During the late 1800s, there were so many shifts in the point of view of political environment and as well as other events that permeated the foundation of the country we live in today. Much of the work they conducted is published in various writings, so feel free to expand and learn more about the heritage of Unitarian Universalism. And now, if we have any children and youth present, if you would like to please follow your RE team out to our classes, and congregation, please join our exit in singing this out.
Now we come to the time in our worship for joys, sorrows, and concerns. Those of you who are on YouTube Live, I know you're not here in person, but your presence is felt, so please put your joys and sorrows into the text chat. Submit them to me during the week, and Sula Danolo is going to put a stone in the water for each one that was submitted.
First, a stone of joy from Kelly DeGraw. Kelly's grandchild Harmony auditioned for Pinellas County Schools all-county chorus and made it. Kelly will represent Northeast High School as a first-year student.
Way to go, Harmony. They were here a second ago. So feel free to congratulate them during coffee hour. And next is a stone of joy from Deb Carlson. There's Deb. And there's Julia. 16 years together, right? Happy anniversary, you two.
Now we have a stone of sorrow for the people of Israel and Palestine, written by the UUA president, Sophia Betancourt. Sophia says, "We are one global family living tenuously on the same human-impacted earth. Let us center ourselves in justice as we call for peace."
I don't have any cards, do you? Oh.
A stone of sorrow and concern from Dick McRobert. For the resolution of the war in Israel and for those who are being held hostage and who have lost family members.
Another stone of sorrow from Dana Foster for people on both sides of the conflict in Palestine and Israel.
A stone of concern from Susan Gore. For Peggy and Sandy, who have been together for over 40 years, Peggy has just been diagnosed with liver and gallbladder cancer.
A stone of concern from Morgan Gresham. Michael's mom, Ruth, is in the hospital with complications from outpatient surgery, sending healing vibes. And so let's bring to mind and hold close to our hearts the people of Palestine, the people of Israel, Michael's mom, Ruth, and their families, Peggy and Sandy, and who did I miss from your cards? So let's please join in our responsive reading. It's in your order of service, written by John Motter.
May our hearts not become calloused by the never-ending incidences of oppression and hatred that so many face each day. Rather, may we keep our hearts open to the positive efforts of so many people causing good trouble in the world.
May we have the strength to demand and gain the right for all people to have a safe place to sleep, health care to keep them strong, and the knowledge that their lives matter.
The struggle is taking longer than it should, but we will get there if we continue to fight for what we all know is right. May all of us find a comforting and compassionate presence in the warmth of fellowship and community. And thank you, Sula, for putting the final stone already in the bowl.
Oh, thank you. This final stone is for those joys and sorrows that remain in our hearts, perhaps too tender to be spoken out loud. And let's take about a minute of silence together. The mystery is that we are connected even when we feel apart. So let us rejoice in our beloved community that makes of the many one. So may it be. You could bring out your gray hymnals once again. Our responsive reading is number 569. And yes, it's by Olympia Brown. So Todd and I will say the non-italics. Todd, if you could say the middle one, and I'll say the first and the end, and then you will say the italics together. Stand by this faith, work for it, and sacrifice for it.
There is nothing in all the world so important as to be loyal to this faith which has placed before us the loftiest ideals, which has comforted us in sorrow, strengthened us for the noble duty, and made this world beautiful.
Do not demand immediate results,
but rejoice that we are worthy to be entrusted with this great message.
That you are strong enough to work for a great, true principle without counting the cost.
Go on finding ever new applications of these truths and new enjoyments in their contemplation, always trusting in the one God which ever lives and loves.
And I know not all of us share the theology of Olympia Brown and belief in the one God, but I know you'll fill in as befits your particular belief system. I invite you to say the UU mission statement right now. And this week, I went easy on you. There's only one blank spot. See if you can remember it. Our mission is to be an inclusive, evolving religious community that inspires spiritual and intellectual growth to make our world a better place. We bring our mission to life through our wide range of shared ministries, social justice, religious education, pastoral care, and many more. Please welcome the UU St. Pete Choir for our anthem. Thank you, St. Pete Choir. There is still room. This is the second Sunday in October, and our monthly theme is the gift of heritage. Aaron and the RE staff made this beautiful gift of heritage diorama centerpiece, which I promptly stole from RE. They're allowing us to have it here. I don't know if we get it the whole month, but it is lovely. And I have had a good time. I've enjoyed the opportunity to learn about Ralph Waldo Emerson last week and Olympia Brown this week. Olympia Brown, of course, the first woman in the United States to be ordained as a minister within and with the approval of a denomination, the Universalist denomination. But I found out a lot more about Olympia Brown, and one surprising thing, Cynthia, I don't even know if you'll know this, she has inspired a series of fan fiction detective stories written by my colleague, UU Minister Judith Campbell, 14 books of the Olympia Brown mysteries. Here's a blurb from one of the books. Professor and college chaplain Olympia Brown learns that one of her students is being recruited by a shadowy religious cult. She and colleague Father Jim Sawicki join forces to infiltrate the group and rescue the girl before she becomes another victim of their deadly mission. Assisted by Olympia's resident house ghost, the spectral Miss Winslow, the two unorthodox clerics encounter a menacing tangle of religious hypocrisy woven against the dark side of human nature as they race against the clock to expose the cult's bloody underbelly and stop them before they kill again. Okay, I'm the only one going to read these, I guess. On a more serious note, I want to open my reflection with a quote from Reverend Olympia Brown because it reminded me of many of our Emerson quotes from last week. Brown said, "When I read the vain discussion of the present day about the virgin birth and other old dogmas which belong in the past, I feel how great the need is still of a real interest in the religion which builds up character, teaches brotherly love, and opens up to the seeker such a world of usefulness and the beauty of holiness." Now, Brown was born a generation after Emerson in the 19th century. But the words reminded me of Emerson's for two reasons. One, less of an emphasis on biblical dogma of the past and people's interpretations, other older people's interpretations of the past, and more emphasis on present day experience of the divine. And then two, because it's such a long sentence and it's full of flowery language. Now, according to UU Reverend Carl Gregg, if you visit St. Lawrence University in New York State, you will find a plaque honoring Olympia Brown as a distinguished alumna from the class of 1863. The plaque reads, "She was the first woman to be graduated by the Theological School in St. Lawrence University. Her Universalist ordination in 1863 made her the first woman in our country to achieve full ministerial standing, recognized by a denomination, preacher of Universalism, pioneer, and champion of women's citizenship rights, forerunner of the new era. The flame of her spirit still burns today." So like with Emerson, I'm not just going to give a history lesson. I want to really think about how she is still alive through her words, through her actions, and how our denomination was shaped by her and how we continue to maintain a connection to her. Brown was a champion of women's right to vote, working closely with other suffragists like Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony. Some of you know that Anthony has been criticized for her racism and white supremacist beliefs. Brown has not, and perhaps her upbringing can shed some light on this. Charlotte Cote, author of Olympia Brown, The Battle for Equality, tells us that Brown was born in 1835 in Michigan. Her aunt and uncle lived nearby, and their house was a station on the Underground Railroad. Over the years, Brown's aunt and uncle helped feed, shelter, and hide nearly 1,500 African Americans who had escaped enslavement and were on their way to Canada. These were the stories Olympia Brown grew up hearing. And her aunt and her mother also supported the equality of women, based in their Universalist beliefs that all human beings are equally worthy of divine love. They instilled these values in young Olympia, so throughout her childhood, she put those values into practice, working against the grain of a sexist society. Cote tells us that in every school she attended, young Olympia resisted any ways that girls were treated as inferior to boys. And she would show that she was capable of memorization, of confident public speaking, or any other assignment that some people tried to reserve for boys alone. Not surprisingly, Brown did very well in school, and then was infuriated to learn that almost no colleges would admit women. She did gain admission in 1854 to Mount Holyoke, then and now a women's-only college. She did not like her first year there. The rules were absurdly strict, and the curriculum was not sufficiently challenging, so she transferred to Antioch College in Ohio. Even here at this comparatively more progressive college, she and some other classmates noticed all the major guest speakers were men. So she led an effort to bring Reverend Antoinette Brown to speak on campus on a Saturday and deliver a sermon nearby on Sunday. See, Reverend Antoinette Brown, no relation, was the first woman she had ever heard preach. Olympia was deeply moved and wrote about the sermon, quote, "The sense of the victory lifted me up. I felt as though the kingdom of heaven were at hand." Now, Reverend Carl Gregg says it can be confusing to keep Antoinette Brown and Olympia Brown, both of whom were path-breaking women in ministry, apart. So here's the gist of it. 1853, Antoinette Brown was ordained by her individual church, a congregational church in upstate New York. 1863, Olympia Brown, so Antoinette Brown, first ordained women that we know of in the country. Olympia Brown, a decade later, St. Lawrence Association of Universalists ordained her, and her ordination was recognized by other Universalist congregations, making her the first woman in the U.S. to be ordained by full denominational authority. And as I said, hearing Antoinette Brown preach strengthened Olympia Brown's call to ministry. But as she reached the end of seminary, as she reached the end of college, she was declined admission from every seminary to which she applied. Charlotte Cote tells us many of these rejection letters explicitly said, quote, "We do not believe ladies are called to the ministry." Finally, St. Lawrence sent their acceptance letter, followed by, and they wouldn't know that later they would be putting up a plaque in her honor, so it was just the generic acceptance letter at the time, followed by a pretty discouraging handwritten personal letter from the university president. It regarded her being their first female student, and the president said, quote, "It is unlikely that there will ever be any others. However," he said, "if you feel that God has called on you to preach the everlasting gospel, you shall receive from me no hindrance, but rather every aid in my power." He ends the letter by saying, "I do not think women are called to the ministry, but I leave that between you and the great head of the church." So Olympia thought, that's where it should be left. So in 1861, 26 years old, she arrived on campus. The president met her and said, "I really wasn't expecting you. I thought my letters would discourage you." So clearly he had not met her, because for Olympia Brown, if there was ever an opening door, she was going to enter. According to UU Reverend Ann Clough, Brown eventually applied for ordination by the faculty of St. Lawrence, and guess what? They said no. Never one to go down without a fight, she appealed to the Universalist Council, and just the week before, one of the members of the Universalist Council had heard Olympia Brown in the pulpit, so added his support, and then finally, in 1863, Olympia Brown became the first woman ordained as a Universalist minister. Now, after her ordination and throughout her life, she worked in Universalist churches, not always in the best churches, the ones that paid the most, the ones that were the most established, because her and many women preachers called the Iowa Sisterhood got the jobs that no one else wanted, that none of the other male ministers wanted, and were left to fend for their own, often rescuing churches that were dwindling in numbers, a pattern that still exists to this day. She spent many of her years and significant time and energy advocating for women's right to vote, often getting up at 4 a.m., eating a hasty breakfast, setting out on an 8 or 10 hour drive or carriage ride to get to a meeting 40 or 50 miles away. And at those meetings, she was a powerful and persuasive speaker. At one meeting, she said, quote, "This is the great argument in favor of the enfranchisement of women. It's not so much the repealing of wicked laws or the establishment of justice, although these are important. It is that women should gain that self-respect and independence, which is characteristic of the free." An abolitionist as well as suffragist. She did marry a supportive man and became the mother of two. But Charlotte Cote says she kept her last name, and on the occasion that someone referred to her as Mrs. Willis, they rarely made that same mistake again. But many years passed, and women still were unable to vote. Reverend Gregg tells us that Brown and other suffragists were outraged at President Wilson after World War II World War I, because Wilson always called himself the head of the greatest democracy on earth. Yet half of U.S. citizens, the female half, could not vote. So on a cold December day in 1918, a crowd gathered in Washington, D.C., pushing for women's suffrage. And a hush fell over that crowd as a small older woman moved to the center of the group. They recognized her as veteran 83-year-old Reverend Olympia Brown, friend and colleague of Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton, both of whom had died more than a decade earlier. Brown came to the fire holding aloft a sheet of papers. Papers were a speech that Wilson had made on a recent trip to France. She thrust the papers in the flames, cried out in a firm, clear voice with emotion, "America has fought for France and the common cause of liberty. I have fought for liberty for 70 years, and I protest against the president's leaving our country with this old fight here unwon." And then, according to the biographers, there was a hush, and the crowd burst into applause and continued to cheer as Brown's companions helped her back to her seat. And less than 2 years later, on August 18th, the 19th Amendment passed, granting women's right to vote. Now, those early decades of the 19th Amendment saw mostly white women exercising the right to vote. Black and BIPOC women were still facing discrimination and Jim Crow laws, either preventing them from voting or making it extremely difficult. But a few weeks after that initial passage, in 1920, Reverend Olympia Brown, now 85, went back to the last congregation where she'd served as a minister in Racine, Wisconsin. Some of you have a connection to Wisconsin and know this. And that morning she preached what we now know was her final sermon. She entitled it "The Opening Doors." We read some of it in our responsive reading. In the introduction to this speech, she said, "It's now nearly 33 years since I resigned my pastorate in this church. That's a long time. Many things have happened, but the grandest thing," she says, "has been the lifting up of the gates and the opening of the doors to the women of America, giving liberty to 27 million women, thus opening to them a new and larger life and higher ideal." Brown said it is worth a lifetime to behold the victory. And on November 2nd, she and millions of women did vote for the first time. Cote says that Reverend Olympia Brown was one of the first in line. There was an open door, and she wanted to get through it. Brown lived a few more happy years, voted in a few more elections. In 1926, she visited Europe for the first time at age 91, spent time touring in Europe, returned home, and passed after a brief illness. Beloved friends at UU St. Pete, let us heed Brown's words that we said earlier together. Stand by this faith, work for it, sacrifice for it. There's nothing in the world so important to you as to be loyal to this faith, which is placed before you the loftiest ideals, which has comforted you in sorrow, strengthened you for noble duty, and made the world beautiful for you. Do not demand immediate results, but rejoice that you are worthy to be entrusted with this great message, and that you're strong enough to work for a great true principle without counting the cost. Go on, finding ever new applications of these truths and new enjoyments of their contemplation. Brown's great true principle was universalism, the inherent worth and dignity of every person, no exceptions. For the Reverend Olympia Brown, universalism meant acting for the equality of women. As you reflect on our state of Florida, the United States, the world, our community, what does Unitarian Universalism call on you to do? YouTube friends, put it in the text chat. Those of you here, say it out loud and I'll repeat it. What does it call on you to do? Yeah, Pat. Stand for justice, in particular with our work for FAST, which Pat is a leader for. Serve our community. Thanks, Morgan. Work for what now? Work for gun control. Thank you. Make a ruckus when necessary. Thank you. We got two right here. What? Work for voting rights. Make racism an obsolete word and concept. Yeah. Work for women's right to choose. Work for reproductive justice. And I saw many of you at the opening of our exhibit right next door in Gilmore Hall, Focus on Abortion. Our bodily autonomy team, I'm so proud of them, is putting on this exhibit for the next few weeks. And that's one of the things we're doing here. To the south, my colleague, Reverend Jay Wolin, and UU Sarasota, stood before the Sarasota School Board this week. He said he's speaking out in support of parents' rights, LGBTQIA plus parents, and the parents of LGBTQIA plus students. Those parents have rights too. So do those kids. He spoke in support of black students and black families, that their accurate history be taught without censorship. When we want to do these things, when we work for a better world, it is deeply spiritual work, because we are acting on the basis of our connection to one another and on the basis of our connection to our heritage. Women like Olympia Brown broke open the door, and countless women have gone through it ever since. Today, there are more UU women and non-binary people being ordained every year than there are men. We owe it to Olympia Brown and to ourselves to remember the gifts she still gives us. We owe it to her and to ourselves to ask, what would Olympia Brown do? Of course, we can't be exactly like her. Our Time for All Ages taught us about Julia Ward Howe, Jane Addams, and Anna Garland Spencer. We all bring different skills to our religious movement. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. Can't all be like Olympia Brown, but let us acknowledge our gratitude to her work, to her example, to her voice. Let us bring our voices, our examples, our work to help shape a better world, all the while cognizant of our interconnection. And who knows, maybe someday someone might write detective fan fiction about us. Amen. Ashe. Blessed be.
Thank you, Ben. We're so grateful to have this building, our staff, our services, and more. In the sanctuary, the offering will now be given and received to take care of our vital community.
We're welcoming 4 new members to the Unitarian Universalist Church of St. Petersburg today. Membership team co-chairs Paul and Carrie Showalter and I will say their names together. Rob Meyer, oh no, that's you.
Rob Myers.
Laura Askew.
Morgan Ballard.
And Laura Jeanchild.
As the co-chairs of the new member committee, Carrie and I want to welcome you to our wonderful UU St. Pete congregation. We're delighted you've decided to become members, and we invite you to embrace the principles that we all share that help continue to guide us.
All of us are energized by your commitment to our congregation. Each one of you brings a unique experience and perspective of what it means to be a part of our spiritual community. You challenge us to continue our search for truth and meaning and to be a part of the interdependent web. We respect and value each other.
We invite you to view today as a first step. Seek to continue your journey to become wholeheartedly engaged in the multiple aspects of our community that call to you and to serve others. We will reach out to you and ask that you reach out to us individually and collectively. Many thanks for putting your trust in our congregation. We welcome you with open arms.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Carrie. Here at UU St. Pete, we have gathered for over a century seeking a higher purpose and a deeper life than we could find alone. So we're grateful for each one of you today that you have found your way here, that you've found and decided to make a commitment to this faith community. We hope that as members of this community, you will allow yourselves to know and to be known, to minister and to be ministered to love and to be loved by this congregation. So if you're willing, please say the affirmation that you were given earlier. Responsibilities that I enter this community, grow, serve. Thank you. For the rest of us, the commitment we are making today is at least as great as those joining us. So members and friends of UU St. Pete, if you are willing to open your hearts and minds to those joining us today, please recite the congregational response printed in your order of service. Online, it is in the text chat. We, the members and friends, the Unitarian Universalist Church of St. Petersburg, welcome you to this congregation. We pledge to be a supportive community that respects who you are and affirms all you can become. Cry with us, laugh with us, work with us. Together we seek the highest good. We are glad you have found in us home for your spirit. Welcome to you, St. Pete new members. Thank you. And Steve is here somewhere and has agreed to take 2 pictures. Thank you, Steve. While he's making his way up, let's say our covenant again that we said at the beginning of worship today. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant. Dwell together in peace, to seek truth and love, and to help one another. We're going to have our closing music, if you don't mind, Aaron, while we are giving you welcoming gifts and your name tags. And that will be followed by our extinguishing of the chalice and our fire drill. Now we invite you to say our chalice extinguishing as Todd extinguishes the chalice. The words to the traditional chalice extinguishing are in your order of service online. They're in the text chat. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of love, or the fire of courage. These we carry in our hearts out into the world. Our worship is over, but our service begins, and we hope this time together will help you through your week. Will help you remember you are not alone. Please join us in Gilmore Hall for coffee hour, but first I think we're going to do something else.